Beckley, where I have practiced law for over 40 years, trying cases in the courts of Raleigh County, in the courts of the other counties in southern West Virginia and some not in southern West Virginia. And when I finish today, I apologize I won't be able to hear the rest of the candidates speak. I have to leave here to go to Pineville to continue the fourth day of the trial I'm involved in down there before Judge McGraw. I have been busy in my practice trying cases, as I said. I have served on the faculty of the University of Virginia's Trial Advocacy Institute at Charlottesville, Virginia, teaching existing lawyers how to try cases in court. I did that for 20 years. I've also served in my community. I'm on the board of directors of the Women's Resource Center. I serve on the local advisory committee of Appalachian Regional Hospital, and I've served as chairman of the Board of Governors of Concord University, and I thank you for your time and attention. Please vote for Jim Brown for fairness and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We'd like to welcome to our forum Andrew Dimlich, who's running for Judge in Division 4. Welcome, Mr. Dimlich.
Thank you, and I'd also like to thank the Chamber for having this event. But when I was called and told 12 attorneys would be given 2 minutes, I thought, you're crazy. This isn't going to work out. There's not a lot I can say in 2 minutes, but I went to Wake Forest College of Law, graduated in 1992, and met my wife, Suzanne, at that school. When we graduated in 1993, we moved to Charleston. At that point, I took a job with the defense firm Poland, Fowler & Flanagan, worked with Dick Flanagan for a number of years. And then after about 5 years there, I took a job with the Attorney General's office, where I worked defending the state's colleges and universities. Did that for 2.5 years, and then in 1999, I went to work with the prosecutor's office here in Beckley. At that time, working with Ms. Keller, now working for her. I love my job as a prosecutor. I've done every single kind of case we have in the office. I've tried misdemeanor cases. I've tried felony cases, and I love the job. Ms. Keller's been a very good boss, very good to me. And, you know, I've heard a lot of negativity today about the court system and what's wrong with it. Quite frankly, I think our court system in Raleigh County is a wonderful system. I think we have one of the best systems in the state. When I was with Poland Fowler, I traveled the whole state. I've been in about every courtroom in every state, and I really think we have one of the best court systems, and that's why I want to be a part of it. I will promise you I'll be fair, and I will hear every case on its own merits, and I also promise you that I will follow the law and not create the law. So I appreciate all your attention, and I appreciate it if you consider voting for Andy Dimlich on Election Day.
Thank you, Mr. Dimlich. Next, we welcome Cindy Kimblinger-Fernald, who is running for Division 4 Judge. Welcome, Ms. Fernald.
Hi, my name is Cindy Kimblinger-Fernald, and I'm running for Circuit Court Judge, 4th Division. I'm a native of Raleigh County. I went to Hollywood Park, and I graduated from Woodrow in 1990. I went to Vanderbilt University, and I graduated from West Virginia University College of Law. I love growing up in Raleigh County. I loved it so much that when I met my husband on our first date, I had 2 non-negotiables. 1, I want to have kids, and 2, I want to raise them in Raleigh County. He was fresh back from Iraq and the Army, and he'd never set foot in West Virginia, much less Raleigh County, but eventually he agreed, and here we are. As much as I love growing up here, I appreciate the toll that drugs and crime and lack of jobs have had in our area. One person can't change all that, but I would love to be a part of that change by serving as the next Circuit Court Judge. Our county has never had a female Circuit Court Judge, and I'm the only female running for Circuit Court Judge. I've had 19 years experience as an attorney. I've worked in circuit courts throughout the state of West Virginia. I've handled complex mass litigation cases with multiple plaintiffs and multiple defendants in the mass litigation panel. And I've served as the administrative attorney of a firm of over 65 employees. I think I have the experience, dedication, and organizational skills necessary to make a great circuit court judge. My husband, Dr. Fernald, is a small business owner and member of the Chamber of Commerce. He has Rainbow Pediatrics, and my dad has owned a small business in Raleigh County for the last 30 years, Bob's Truck and Car Repair. I'm thankful for people who choose to own and operate businesses in our county, and I appreciate the need for those businesses to thrive. I have 5-year-old twins, Lauren and John. They're in preschool here in Raleigh County, so I have a vested interest in the future of our community. I want there to be jobs here, and I want it to be safe, so my children and your children will choose to come and live here and start their families here. In my free time, I'm a huge animal lover. I love walking my dogs and getting outdoors and enjoying all the scenery and activities we have to offer in our area. I appreciate your vote. I'm Cindy Kidlinger Fernald. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fernald. Next up, Christopher Leffler, who is also running for judge in Division 4. Welcome, Mr. Leffler.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Christopher Leffler, and I too am running for the Division 4 Judicial seat here in Raleigh County. I'd like to thank the Chamber and the Convention Center for hosting us here today. I am a Beckley native. I grew up here right on East French Street. Graduated from Woodrow Wilson High School, and then went on to become, I guess what's referred to as a true thundering mountaineer. Went into Marshall University as undergrad. Went on to W College of Law. When I graduated, I went to work in Charleston for the Huddleston Baldwin Civil Defense Fund. Relocated back to Beckley. Always wanted to come back here. Love the community, love the area. I've opened a small practice when I relocated here. I've maintained that practice throughout the years. I've also served as an assistant prosecuting attorney in Raleigh County and currently serve as one of the hygiene commissioners in Raleigh County. Through the course of my practice, as Mr. Luedy made reference to, it's a true small town Southern West Virginia practice. We're called upon day in and day out to do everything from criminal representation to personal injury to child abuse, neglect, to family law, and I've been doing that now for 15 years. And over those 15 years, you learn that you develop a broad spectrum of knowledge and skills and abilities that you can provide to people. And I think that's what our sitting judges are most often called upon to do. That they have to deal with almost every legal issue imaginable. And they have to deal with experience and knowledge. And they have to apply the rule of law, but at times they also have to guide people to resolutions that are not always readily apparent and perhaps things that people didn't see and that they find that the solutions that are presented are the best. I'd like to bring my skills and my experience and my ability to the bench. I have represented the people of Raleigh County, and I would like to continue to serve the people of Raleigh County as the new judge in the 4th Division. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leffler. Next up, for Division 4, we want to welcome John Parculo. Welcome, Mr. Parculo.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. My name is John Parculo, and I'm also running for Circuit Judge for Raleigh County Division 4. Division 4, so everybody knows, is a new circuit judge that's coming to Raleigh County. And Raleigh County very much needs a new circuit judge due to the tremendous caseload that is in Raleigh County in the criminal, civil, and other matters that become before a circuit judge. I am a lifelong resident of Raleigh County. I graduated from Woodrow Wilson High School in 1977. I'm a 1981 graduate of West Virginia University, and I earned a law degree in 1986 from Mississippi College School of Law. I returned here and started practicing law in 1986. I began practicing law, first of all, in the prosecuting attorney's office. I was assistant prosecuting attorney for 2.5 years. I also served as bill drafter in the 1989 legislative session, and after that was shortly with the firm of Riskin Associates, and then became associate with the firm at that time of Anderson and Time. Later became a partner of that firm, and it became Anderson, Parculo, Spencer and Associates, where I practiced with that firm for 16 years. I've also served as assistant executive secretary for the West Virginia Board of Dental Examiners, and also served as executive secretary for the West Virginia Board of Dental Examiners, which regulates the practice of dentistry in the state of West Virginia. I have 30 years experience practicing law. I'm familiar with criminal law. I'm familiar with civil law. I'm familiar with administrative law. I handle abuse and neglect. I handle juvenile cases. I am equipped and prepared to be a circuit judge in Raleigh County for various reasons. Number one, I I have served in front of some of the finest judges that remain in Raleigh County, and currently see the judges, Judge Kirkpatrick, Judge Hutchinson, and Judge Springside. And I'm not just saying that because they're here. They are truly good judges. And I look forward to hopefully becoming a circuit judge myself after learning what it's like to be a judge for these fine gentlemen. Again, my name is John Parklow. I look forward to your support and hope to your vote on May 10th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Parkulo. We remind the listening audience on the radio that this is Meet the Candidates on WWNR from the Beckley-Raleigh County Convention Center. Next up, Darrell Poling, who is running for Judge in Division 4. Welcome, Mr. Poling.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm one of that bunch running for Division 4. I'm a lifelong resident of Beckley. I grew up here. My mom and dad still are here, Gary and Marianne Poling. I married Cindy Oren, whose mom and dad are Jim and Mary Oren, who used to own the Harvey Cabinet. I went to WVU, graduated from WVU College of Law in 1988, and returned to Beckley. When I returned, I joined the law firm of Abrams, Byron, Henderson, and Richmond, and worked there for right at 2 years. I left there and spent a year at the Public Defender's Office. Left the Public Defender's Office to form the law firm of Canterbury, Poling & Root with Tom Canterbury, then Judge Canterbury's son, and Bill Root. We practiced together for about 7 years, and each went our separate ways, and I've been practicing under the law firm of Poling Law Offices as a solo practitioner since then. When I returned to Beckley, my wife, who's a school teacher, has been teaching here since we returned. I ran for city council and spent 4 years as councilman for Ward 4 of the city of Beckley. At the end of that term, the opportunity became available, and I became city judge. I have served as city of Beckley judge for the last 20 years. And I believe that's one thing that distinguishes me from the other candidates, that I have actual set as a judge. At the same time, I have carried on a solo practice, solely here in Raleigh County, because that's my home. I returned to Raleigh County because I love Raleigh County and Beckley. I believe that I am the candidate that will best serve Raleigh County because of that. I care about what happens here. I'm on the board of directors for Beckley Babe Ruth. I've been on that board for 10 years. I'm proud to say that while I've been there, I helped secure the grants that helped rebuild our concession stand and refurbish that field so that 13 and 15-year-old boys have something to do and can continue that program. One of the other things that I've done in this community is I'm on the board of Hospice of Southern West Virginia. That's probably one of the most proud things I have because it's such an important thing. I ask you to support my candidacy for judge by your vote, either in early voting or on May the 10th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poling. Next up, Stanley Selden, also a candidate for Judge in Division 4. Welcome, Mr. Selden.
Thank you. Before I begin, I would like Mr. Tirico to give me a 1-minute warning on the ballot. My name is Stanley Selden. I'm running for the new judgeship in the 4th Division. If elected Raleigh County Circuit Court Judge, I pledge to use all my experience, knowledge, and resources to reduce the overwhelming backlog of cases on the court's docket while applying the letter of the law to achieve its intent, which is justice for all concerned. My signs carry the motto, not just the law, but justice. By that, I hope to use case law, statutes, court rules to achieve a just result for victims, the family of victims, society as a whole, and still protect the rights of the accused or litigants. How? I'll get into that. There's a huge backlog of cases, and the current judges are expected to handle 1.8 times the normal caseload of judges across the state. That means we actually need 3 new judges, but we're only getting 1. So, we need someone who's organized, even-tempered, and efficient, knowledgeable to move those cases along, and that's me. I was born in 1955 and grew up in Beckley, West Virginia. My father owned and operated Barnes Furniture, TV, and Appliances for 30 years here. I'm a lifelong member of Temple Bethel and on the governing board for the last 16 years. I'm a single parent of a wonderful 16-year-old daughter, and she, as well as anyone else you speak to, will tell you I am a loving and devoted father. I had a former career as a medical and biological illustrator. I was only one of 150 certified medical illustrators across the country. I tell you that because that gives me insight into these cases as well. I changed my career by attending Case Western Reserve University Law School in 1985. I graduated in I've been practicing for 28 years as an attorney. I personally have solely handled over 5,200 cases. These include every type of case that might come before a circuit court judge. I would ask that you take that into consideration and vote for me for the new judgeship. I would be honored to serve as your next Raleigh County Circuit Court judge. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Selden. Next up, we welcome Clyde Smith. Welcome, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. As he said, my name is Clyde Smith. I am a lifelong resident of Raleigh County. I also graduated from Woodrow Wilson High School in 1965, graduated from Hampden-Sydney College in Virginia in 1969, and then served 2 years in the United States Army from 69 to 71. When I returned back to Beckley after the Army, I got a job with a law firm in Charleston for 3 years, K. Casto and Cheney. I feel very privileged to have worked with those lawyers. And then I attended law school at WVU and graduated from there in 1978, and then came back to Beckley to practice, where I've been practicing ever since. During the practice of law here, I've spent 20 years doing insurance defense litigation with the law firm of Lynch, Mann & Smith, later Lynch, Mann, Smith & Mann. I also handled during that time other types of cases and handled a number of appeals to the Supreme Court, some of them successful. My parents instilled in me a sense of responsibility to return to the community, so as part of that, I've been a member of the board of the Humane Society of Raleigh County since 1979 and still serve on that board. I am in my second term on the board of FMRS Mental Health, first serving back in the 90s and then more recently, and I'm currently president of that organization. Like Mr. Poling, I'm on the board of Hospice, which is very near and dear to me because of my mother's involvement with the starting of that organization. And I was a mental hygiene commissioner in Raleigh County from 1979 until 2012. And during that period of time, I held a number of hearings on folks who were mentally ill and addicted, and also guardian conservator hearings. I feel that my perspective is rather unique in the dual involvement of mental hygiene commissioner and with FMRS, that I can deal with what we've heard is a very serious drug problem that we have now. And I think the drug court is a very good beginning on that. I feel with my qualifications I could be fair and impartial. I'm taking no donations from anyone, so I'm not beholden to anyone. And I look for your vote on May 10th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And finally, we want to welcome Russell Wooten, who is running for judge in Division 4. Welcome, Mr. Wooten.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank you for coming out here this morning. As I said, my name is Russell Wooten. I'm one of the 10 candidates for the newly created Circuit Judge 4th Division. I was born in Beckley, raised in Raleigh County. I was educated in the Raleigh County Public School System and graduated from WSU in 1996. I received my undergraduate degree from WVU in 2001 and graduated from WVU College of Law in 2010. Immediately upon graduation, I joined my father and my uncle in private practice of law right here in Beckley. In my practice, I've seen a great many different types of cases. I believe this is the ideal preparatory experience to be a circuit court judge. In addition to the records of educational and practical experience, many courtroom observers and fellow lawyers have told me that I'm a smart judge. So my patience leads to the ideal temperament to listen to cases. As a judge, all I can do is uphold the laws of the legislature passes and uphold both the West Virginia and the United States Constitution. I've been effective as an attorney for doing just that. I study the facts of the case, I review the laws, and I advise my clients. Raleigh County has always been my home. In fact, my bedroom growing up is not my Bible study. As far back as I can remember, the only thing that I wanted to do was come home and serve the people of Raleigh County. I've served as a member of the board of directors for the Raleigh County Community Action Association and as a board of the Woodrow Wilson Football Hall of Fame. My father and other
family members have been committed to public service. Perhaps with the dread and singing, if not the sense of obligation to large and for our community is something that I learned at an early age is a large part of who I am. I remember with great pride many of the people coming up and telling me to thank my father over one of my uncles for their service to the community. I want to do all that I can to make Raleigh County the better place to live. I believe personally that to serve our community is to serve the sake before God. I'm proud of my service to the bar, and if elected, I will serve you honorably, and I continue to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Wooten, and all the judges in both District or Division 3 and Division 4. We remind our listeners on the radio that we're at the Meet the Candidates Forum here at the Beckley-Raleigh County Convention Center on WWNR Beckley at 620 AM and 101.1 FM, also streaming on WWNRradio.com. Now we want to move to the City of Beckley, the mayor candidates. There's 3 of them running for mayor of the City of Beckley, and each candidate will be asked 2 questions and be given 1 minute to answer each question. And the first mayoral candidate that we want to welcome is Dr. An Amjad. Welcome, Dr. Amjad. And our first question will come from Tim Carrico of WVNS 59 News.
Good morning, Dr. Amjad. WVU Tech's move to Beckley in the fall is obviously something that we all know could be an economic boom for the city. What do you think, this is a 2-part question, what do you think Beckley will look like in 5 years? And also, what kind of jobs do you think, as mayor, if elected, could you bring to the area for these WVU Tech graduates to fill?
I think WVU Tech coming here is a godsend. I think it's a blessing that they have decided to move to Beckley. My vision in 5 years is to have Beckley to be similar to another college town where you have a lot of young people in the area. You know, we're talking about 18 to 24-year-olds who are here to learn, to study, and to hopefully want to stay in the area. As we know, a lot of the candidates up here were all local people. We went to school here, we went to school in the state, and we returned home. So if WVU Tech is here and students come here, I would hope they want to remain here in 5 years. And that in turn will create more jobs for themselves, create other jobs to come in to support them, and so forth. So that being said, you know, having a school here should recruit jobs locally and hopefully retain them for a lifetime, just like our candidates up here are.
Our next question for Dr. Amjad comes from Dave Kirby of WWNR.
Most of us want government to cut spending. Just don't let us be effective. Are you familiar with the budget of the city, the restraints you might be facing, and then how do you get the job done?
I think like any city, we run the risk of not having enough funds. There is the issue of whether or not you're going to raise taxes and what that goes towards. I believe that because West Virginia is in the news as one of the top 3 to 4 states that are in poverty with the drug issues, with the health issues, that we should try to utilize federal grants as much as possible. We should use that in our favor to try to get money into the state. There are multiple grants out there that would help a city like Beckley, that would help the state of West Virginia, and that we should use that to our advantage. One of the goals as mayor was to beef up our grant program writing team so that we can get more funds in the area. Raising taxes, no one wants to do that. If we have to raise them on a certain level, those funds should be designated where they're going to go. But I'm a big proponent of trying to get grants from other sources to get that into a city, and we should utilize that as much as possible.
Thank you, Dr. Amjad. Thank you. Next up, mayoral candidate Rob Rappold. Welcome, Mr. Rappold. And our question for Mr. Rappold will come from Keith Thompson of WJLS.
Good morning, Mr. Rappold. If you could, please list, say, the top 2 items you feel that as mayor of Beckley that needs critical attention, and how will you go about taking care of these issues?
I think it all begins with the proper fiscal management of the budget. We have a balanced budget of $20,561,000. As Dr. Amjad said, we have to constantly monitor the budget. You don't lose 1,000 coal mining jobs in Raleigh County without a detrimental effect to the money in circulation. We feel like we're in good shape, but we need to watch that daily. Law enforcement is very important. The drug problem is very important. I recently spent time with some folks at the Carpenter's Corner here in Beckley and heard some of their concerns. These people are not eating lunch on a free basis every day because they want to. It's because of their particular situation that's driven them to that. We have 7 drug treatment centers in Raleigh County. Most of those are in the Beckley area. We probably need twice that many. We have drug addicted folks who have waited months and months for one-on-one treatment consultation. So drugs, crime, fiscal management would be my priorities.
Our next question comes from Damon Kane of the Register Herald.
Good morning. Speaking of crime, over the past 4 years, Beckley has seen 15 murders. 75% of the victims are African American. What does Beckley have a race issue, and what would you do to go about solving that?
I don't think Beckley does have a race issue. The statistics that Chief Monty Christian quoted recently at a city council meeting where he gave an update on the crime statistics in Beckley really revealed that they've been rather flat for the past 5 years. We do have an influence now from out of state, from Columbus, from Detroit. These folks are bringing drugs into the area. They're trading for guns and money, and it's an issue. We have a wonderful neighborhood watch program put together by Mr. Phipps in the Gregory and Grafton Street area. Mr. Phipps is a black gentleman who works with other people in the neighborhood along with our police force to do some really good things. There's already been some buzz, there have been some truancy arrests in that area in the past few weeks. So I think we're well on our way to a very unified, non-divisive city and neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Rappold. Thank you. Our next candidate is Cedric Robertson, who is also running for mayor of City of Beckley, and our question comes from Tim Carrico of 59 News.
Mr. Robinson, good morning. You have a history working with the Beckley Police Department. How do you work with Beckley Police in managing and helping fight crime in the Beckley area?
Well, first of all, good morning, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. I think, first of all, we must continue to employ community policing. And what I mean by community policing is have the officers in the community, not only when crime happens, to talk to residents and see what their needs are. I think if you begin to know the residents in your community, then the residents will feel they are able to come and talk to you and tell you things that will enable you to find out what the problems are, who's committing crimes, and so forth.
Okay, our next question from Dave Kirby of WWNR for Mr. Robertson.
Tim had mentioned just a few minutes ago about WVU Tech coming to Beckley. When that becomes a reality, when that happens, is that going to change the thinking of city government in any way?
I think we have to market the city of Beckley for West Virginia Tech, because I believe West Virginia Tech will be the best financial engine that we have seen in years. So I believe that with West Virginia Tech coming in, we have to sell the city of Beckley. We have to clean up the city of Beckley and make sure our city is safe for the students that will be attending school here.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson, and all of the mayoral candidates. Now we want to move on to Sheriff of Raleigh County, and each candidate will be asked 2 questions and be given 1 minute to answer each question. And we want to begin with Keith Thompson of WJLS, and our first sheriff candidate is Stan Ellison. Welcome, Mr. Ellison.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You know, most everyone on this table this morning in one way, shape, or form has mentioned the drug problem in the state of West Virginia as the chief law enforcement officer in Raleigh County. what would be your plans on the drug problem we have here?
Well, sir, I think the drug problem is something we're not going to be able to arrest our way out of. This developed over a number of years, and presently I'm in the coal industry, and I see the effects it's taken on with the drug aspect, not only to our young folks, but our middle-class citizens that's working within the mining industry and so forth. People's losing jobs. Along with the drug problem, there comes crime. Being the sheriff, if I am elected coming in, I'll be already 6 months into my budget year. I don't know what kind of money I'll have available to look at, but I think the drug courts that we've established, the drug treatment centers, is an excellent start. I think we need more in attempt to help the folks than incarcerate.
Our next question is from Damon Kane, the editor of the Register Herald, and that is for Mr. Ellison.
What's your take on permitless concealed carry gun laws that was passed by the state legislature this last session? Does that make your job as sheriff more difficult?
It does, sir. I'm pro Second Amendment. I believe in our constitutional right to carry firearms. However, I think some type of training needs to be established than to just give anybody a firearm. The criminals out here are already carrying concealed, but I do feel that a need for better training should be established.
Thank you, Mr. Ellison. Stan Ellison, candidate for sheriff of Raleigh County. And next we want to welcome Patrick McMillan. And our question will come from Tim Carrico of 59 News. Welcome, Mr. McMillan.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. McMillan. It seems like a way to fight crime in the area and drugs is to start by appealing to the youth and talking with them. I'm 22 years old, and I see so many friends of mine that went through high school with me in the court system with these types of problems, whether it's drugs or crime, whatever. How do you appeal to the youth in Raleigh County to try to keep them out of trouble?
You have to have empathy for people. You always have to put yourself in their shoes. It's just they had a really hard time. That's where I'm trying to say that there needs to be basketball league, people think there needs to be occupied to keep them out of trouble. Need to be spoken with. When I'm elected sheriff, I tend to go around to all areas of this county and speak with everyone, children and people.
Thank you. Okay, our next question from Mr. McMillan comes from Dave Kirby. Dave?
Just about anyone that runs for a law enforcement position will be calling on the need for the public to get involved. And yet at the same time, I don't think you want a bunch of Barney Fife types running around. How do you get the public involved without having them overstep their bounds? You have to set parameters and let them know that they can't go over them. Need to be screened to find it. It's a process. Let me say, at the end of the day, the Lord has to take care of everything. He has to give whomever wisdom and what to do.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. Thank you. Next up, candidate for Sheriff Scott Van Meter, and our question will come from Keith Thompson of WJLS.
Scott, earlier Damon asked the question to Mr. Ellison about the concealed carry. Your thoughts on that as a former law enforcement officer and now running for the position of sheriff?
I've also been the Second Amendment. I'm a hunter. My son's a hunter. I follow local hunting. Everyone in my family hunts. my advice to people, especially people who don't commit the crime, take the class, get familiar. I would advise everybody to you strap on that gun, put it between your teeth, you're taking your family. You get shot in the beginning, and it takes a lot of headache and heartache.
Next question from Damon Kane, editor of the Register Herald, for Mr. Van Meter.
Good morning. How does the sheriff's department go about building trust within all communities in Raleigh County?
People don't respect police they don't respect the law enforcement. Do that every night. That's the strength of the ties between the community and the police. One way, right? Community watch. Police need to get more involved in that, not just one officer from the sheriff's department or the state police or the city police. Everyone needs to get involved. More people need to get involved in community watch. If you don't have a community watch, you need to get strengthen that. That's the way to start the country.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Meter, and all the sheriff candidates. And we're now moving to our final category, and that is the race for assessor. Each candidate will be asked 2 questions and be given 1 minute to answer each question. And we want to begin with Billy Joe Moore Jackson. And our question will be from Tim Carrico of 59 News.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
First off, this is a pretty simple, basic question. What is the biggest change you would like to see to the assessor's office?
I don't work at the assessor's office, so really, as a customer of the assessor's office, I've never one time went to the assessor's office to pay my taxes. The ladies are friendly. They're more than willing to help you. If you don't have what you do, they will go out of their way to get it. I believe that they're doing a great job right now. As far as the employees that I've dealt with, I think they've done a great job.
So there's nothing you'd change?
I believe I would have to go in and spend some time. I believe that people that work there are doing a good job. I'm not sure what's going on in there because I'm not in their internal circle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question from Dave Kirby of WWNR for Billy Joe Moore Jackson.
When kids grow up, we hear them say things like they'd like to be firefighters or doctors or lawyers or whatever. But I don't think I've ever heard one say, I hope I'll be the assessor. Why do you want the job?
As a small business owner in Raleigh County, lifelong resident in Raleigh County, my parents are in Raleigh County. I have a 20-year-old son who is in Raleigh County. He's employed by the Turnpike. He looked at me about 6 months ago and said, Mom, if they take away the tolls, I'm moving to Charlotte, which in turn means one of these days when we meet your wife and have my grandkids, they won't be in Raleigh County where I need them to be. So I need to get involved. I know that as a state trooper's wife, we live on a budget. He's not doing it to get rich. Personal property taxes are important to me. As a small business owner, taxes are important to me also. I feel as a small business owner, I've learned to live on a budget. I've had to learn to fluctuate a budget due to the economy up and down. I feel that if you work with the people of Beckley, you give them an open door policy. You got to be fair, but you got to be equal to everyone. If we'd have an open door policy, I think I would be successful at that job.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jackson. Thank you. Next, we wish to welcome Linda Sumner, who also is running for assessor, and our question for her will come from Keith Thompson of WJLS.
Morning, Linda. As your former position with the House of Delegates, you've seen problems that took over the entire state. How do you parallel that job into the job as assessor?
I think they go hand in hand because with both jobs, you're going to be working with people with unique needs. And as a legislature, you know how to read the bill, how to track them and follow them. You know how to listen to people's concerns. And for 12 years on that, and still 2 years later, and the assistant to the whip, I still have the opportunity to help people find solutions to their issues and problems. Same with the assessor's office. You need to understand the legislation that's coming in that affects the county. You need to make sure you're fair and you're honest with people, and you need to be able to have the organizational skills necessary to maintain that office.
Next question, Damon Kane, editor of the Register-Herald, for Ms. Sumner.
Good morning.
Good morning.
About a year ago, the Raleigh County Assessor was charged with ethics violations related to nepotism, essentially, and for using a county vehicle for personal use. What assurances can you give us that you will run the office to the highest standard?
First of all, I don't think the assessor's office should be a political race. I think it should be nonpartisan. We're not talking about political parties. We're talking about dealing with people's property values and assessing them for what they need to do. I think a person should be hired based upon their ability to serve, the qualifications they would have to meet. And I myself, I have no relatives or friends or anyone, to my knowledge, that would apply for a position there. But if it came down to, if it was someone I knew, certainly you would contact the Ethics Commission for advice and go from there. But I think we have a good group of people in place, and I would be certainly aware of all of that if it came up for me to hire someone in that capacity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sumner. Thank you. And we'd like to welcome Gerald Swanson, who is also running for assessor, and our question for him will come from Tim Carrico of 59 News.
Good morning. Tell me a little bit about your management experiences and tell me how you could bring that to the job.
In 1977, I graduated from WVU with a degree in mining engineering. And in 1994, I went to Northwestern University School of Management and got a certificate for executive management. In 2002, I received a Master's of Science in Strategic Leadership from Mountain State University. In my 38-year career in the mining business, I held every position from a production foreman, mine foreman, superintendent, general manager, director of engineering, and vice president of engineering. And as vice president of engineering, I was responsible for every 2 years to evaluate over 300,000 acres of property, mineral rights, timber, land, oil, gas, coal. Also had to give to the various counties our values of all of our infrastructure and buildings. So I'm familiar with evaluating properties and evaluating the natural resources on those properties.
And our final question for this forum comes from Dave Kirby of WWNR.
Since my question is the last one, I would like to say that it has been extremely refreshing not to have a lot of mudslinging and name-calling, and you all are to be commended the way you have handled yourselves today. Now let's see if I can come up with a doozy, right?
Yes, sir.
What do you think might be the biggest challenge that would face you as assessor?
Well, the biggest challenge in the assessor's office right now is there is a lack of cross-training in jobs. I mean, people that work in the assessor's office are very good people. They have to have sick days, vacation days, and there's a lack of cross-training right now. That needs to be accomplished so that when somebody does go on vacation or off, when they come back, they don't get stressed out. Plus, they're not processing everything in a good manner. You want to be fair with the taxes, do assessments that are fair. Have an open door policy. I want to have outreach into the community everywhere, into all corners of Raleigh County. When the yearly tax assessment form comes out, I'd like to have town hall meetings with people, make sure people understand how they need to fill out those forms. A lot of people haven't taken advantage, if you're 65 or older, of the Homestead Act. I mean, that reduces your taxes by $10,000, which in turn reduces, if you have a mortgage, reduces your mortgage down on, and even on your insurance payment. So those are things I'd like to look at.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Folks, we made it. We made it. Lots of candidates. We do urge you to vote on May 10th. Early voting begins April 27th. Thank you. Thanks to the Beckley-Raleigh County Chamber of Commerce. And we appreciate you being here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us for this live broadcast of Meet the Candidates at the Beckley-Raleigh County Convention Center, hosted by Jake Quesenberry and Dave Kirby. Our broadcast has been brought to you by Frontier Communications, Employees Innovative Network, Bookkeeping for You and Taxes Too, and First Community Bank. Our next Meet the Candidates Forum will be on April 21st, where we'll be broadcasting live from 7 a.m. until 9 a.m. at the Holiday Lodge in Oak Hill for the Fayette County Meet the Candidates, right here on WWNR, News Talk 101.1 FM and 620 AM.